Stop scrolling, because the penny in your pocket right now could be worth more than a luxury house, that I'm not joking. Some ordinary-looking Lincoln pennies have sold for hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars. And the craziest part? Most people have no idea what to look for, and they're spending these coins every single day. That in the next few minutes, I'm revealing the top 5 most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered, including one that sold for over $1 million and could still be hiding in circulation. What if I told you that a single penny, yes, a coin most people ignore, drop, or toss into jars, could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? Not a rare gold coin, not a centuries-old artifact, a simple 1979 Lincoln 1-cent coin, the kind that may have passed through your hands without a second thought. Now here's the question that should make you pause. What if you already owned one and didn't even know it? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll not only understand why a 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has shocked collectors with values reaching up to $766,000, but you'll also know exactly what to look for before someone else cashes in on what could have been yours. Let's start with something simple. Picture this. It's late evening. You're cleaning out an old drawer, maybe one you haven't touched in years. Receipts, old batteries, loose screws, and then you hear it. That familiar metallic sound. Coins sliding against each other. You pick up a handful of pennies. Nothing special, or so it seems. But what if one of those coins, just one, was worth more than your car, your house, maybe even your retirement savings? Sounds unbelievable, right? But here's the truth. In the world of coin collecting, the smallest details can create massive value. And the 1979 Lincoln penny is a perfect example of that hidden opportunity. Now let's break it down. The 1979 Lincoln penny was produced in massive numbers. Millions, actually billions, were minted. That's why most people assume they're worthless. And in most cases, they are. But, and this is where things get interesting, not all 1979 pennies are the same. Some were struck under unique conditions, others have rare errors, and a very small number exist in exceptional, near-perfect condition. These are the coins that collectors fight over. And when demand meets rarity, prices explode. So what exactly makes a 1979 no-mint mark penny so valuable? First, let's clarify something important. A no-mint mark penny means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. For many years, Philadelphia coins didn't carry a mint mark, so this is normal. But here's where things shift. Within this massive batch of coins, there are a few that stand out. Coins that exhibit extraordinary quality, known as high-grade specimens, often graded MS-67 or higher. Now you might be wondering, what does that even mean? Think of it like this. Imagine 2 identical cars. Same model, same year. One has scratches, faded paint. The other looks like it just rolled off the factory floor, perfect in every way. Which one would you pay more for? Exactly. In coin collecting, that difference can mean going from a few cents to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then, there are errors. Yes, the beautiful mistakes that turn ordinary coins into treasures. Some 1979 pennies have double die errors where the design appears slightly duplicated. Others may show off-center strikes, or subtle misalignments that only trained eyes or lucky beginners can spot. And here's the twist. These mistakes were never meant to leave the mint, but they did. And today, collectors are willing to pay enormous sums to own them. Now let's talk about the number that got your attention. $766,000. Yes, that's real. But here's the part most people don't realize. That price wasn't just for any 1979 penny. It was for an exceptionally rare combination of factors. Near-perfect condition, sharp details, strong luster, and potentially unique characteristics that set it apart from every other coin of its kind. In other words, it was one in millions. Maybe even one in billions. So now the big question. Do you have one? Before you dismiss the idea, let me ask you this. How many times have you handled loose change without looking closely? How many jars of coins are sitting in your home right now? How many pennies have you already spent without checking? It's not about luck. It's about awareness. Because the truth is, valuable coins don't look valuable at first glance. They hide in plain sight. Let's shift gears for a moment. Imagine finding that coin that you're sitting at your table, examining a penny under light. Something feels different. The shine, the detail, the weight of possibility. You decide to get it evaluated. Days later, the call comes in. Your coin isn't ordinary. It's rare, extremely rare, and suddenly, that small copper coin becomes a life-changing asset. sounds like a dream. For some people, it already happened. But here's where things get serious. Not every shiny penny is worth a fortune. In fact, most aren't. And this is where many people make costly mistakes. They either ignore potential treasures, or they overestimate common coins. So how do you stay on the right side of that line? Simple. You learn what to look for. Start with condition. Look for coins that appear almost flawless. Minimal scratches. Strong, original shine. Clear details in Lincoln's face and the lettering. Next, check for errors. Use a magnifying glass if you have one. Look closely at the date, the word liberty, and the phrase "in God we trust." Any doubling or unusual spacing could be a sign of something special. And finally, trust your instincts. If a coin looks different, feels different, or catches your attention, don't ignore it. That instinct could be pointing you towards something valuable. Now let me interrupt you for a second. Yes, I know what you're thinking. This sounds great, but what are the chances? Fair question. The chances are small. But not zero. And here's the reality. Someone will find the next valuable coin. Why not you? Let's talk about urgency. The longer valuable coins stay unnoticed, the greater the risk they get lost, spent, or damaged. Every day, rare coins are accidentally used in transactions, disappearing back into circulation, sometimes forever, which means the supply is constantly shrinking. And when supply goes down, value goes up. So the real risk isn't checking your coins, it's not checking them. Now imagine this scenario. You finish watching this video. You walk over to that jar of coins you've ignored for years. You start going through it point one by one. Most are ordinary. But then, you paused. There's one coin that looks different. And suddenly, everything you've just learned starts to click. That moment, that single moment, could change everything. But before we reach the end, there's one more thing you need to understand. Finding a valuable coin is only part of the journey. Knowing what to do next is where the real power lies. If you believe you've found something special, don't rush to sell it immediately. Get it authenticated by a professional grading service. Proper grading can dramatically increase a coin's value and credibility. And remember, serious collectors don't just buy coins. They invest in them. So here we are. A simple penny. A powerful possibility and a choice. You can keep seeing pennies as loose change, or you can start seeing them as hidden opportunities. Because somewhere out there, maybe in your home, maybe in your pocket, maybe even in your past, there's a coin waiting to be discovered. And it doesn't announce itself. It waits for someone who knows what to look for. So let me leave you with this. Tonight, before you go to bed, take 5 minutes. Check your coins. Not casually, not quickly, carefully. Because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary might be just one penny away. And if that penny happens to be a rare 1979 Lincoln coin, you won't just be holding spare change. You'll be holding a story. A discovery. And possibly a fortune. Right now, somewhere in America, a simple penny, yes, a single-cent coin, is quietly hiding in a jar, a drawer, or an old coffee can. It looks ordinary, feels ordinary, but under the right conditions, it can be worth up to $966,000. And today, we're talking about one of those coins, the 1964 D Lincoln 1-cent penny. Before you brush this off, let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually checked your pennies? Not glanced at them, not tossed them into a jar, but really looked. Because by the end of this video, you might be running to find them. Let's start at the beginning. The year is 1964. America is changing fast. Silver is disappearing from coins. The economy is shifting. And at the Denver Mint, millions upon millions of Lincoln pennies are being struck with a small D mint mark. At first glance, there is nothing special here. These coins were mass-produced. Billions exist. They were used, spent, forgotten. But here's where things get interesting. Not all 1964 D pennies are the same. In fact, a tiny fraction of them, so rare that most collectors will never even see one in person, carry subtle differences. Differences so small most people would never notice. But collectors do. And collectors pay. Big. Money. Now imagine this, you're cleaning out an old drawer. You find a handful of pennies. You almost throw them away or spend them without thinking. But one catches your eye. It looks a little sharper. Maybe the color is different. Maybe the details feel stronger. You hesitate. That hesitation could be the difference between 1 cent and nearly $1 million. So what makes a 1964 D penny worth $966,000? It's not luck, that it's not hype, that it's a combination of rarity, condition, and error. Let's break that down. First, condition. Most pennies from 1964 are worn, scratched, faded. They've been through decades of circulation. But a coin that has never been used, one that looks almost exactly the way it did the day it was minted, that's called mint state. And the higher the grade, the higher the value. Now here's the twist. Even among mint state coins, only a handful reach near perfection. We're talking microscopic details. Sharp lines in Lincoln's hair, crisp lettering, no visible damage. Coins like that don't just increase in value, they explode in value. Second, rarity. Yes, billions of 1964 D pennies were made. But high-grade survivors? Extremely rare. Think about it, how many people in 1964 carefully preserved pennies in perfect condition, knowing they might be valuable decades later? Very few, which means most of these coins were lost to time, wear, and damage. And when supply drops and demand rises, prices skyrocket. Now here's where things get really exciting. Third, errors. Some of the most valuable coins in history are not perfect, but imperfect. Minting errors, tiny mistakes made during production, can turn an ordinary penny into a collector's dream. We're talking about things like double strikes, off-center designs, unusual metal compositions, or subtle variations that only experts can detect. And when a rare error appears on a coin that's already scarce, that's when six-figure and even near million-dollar valuations become possible. Now pause for a second. Let me ask you something. What if you've already had one of these coins and didn't realize it? What if it passed through your hands years ago? Feels uncomfortable, right? That's the fear. But here's the good news. There's still time. Coins like the 1964 D penny are still out there, still circulating, still hiding, and people are finding them. Let me tell you a quick story. A man in his late 50s, just like many of you watching, decided to go through an old jar of coins he'd been collecting for years. No expectations, no expertise. Just curiosity. He started separating pennies by date. 1970s, 1950s. Then he spotted it. 1964 with a D. At first, he thought nothing of it. But something made him look closer. The condition was unusually clean. The details stood out. It didn't look like the others, so he did what most people don't do. He got it checked. And what he discovered changed everything. Now, not every story ends with a massive payout, but some do. And the difference often comes down to one simple decision. Did you check? Or did you ignore? Let's bring this back to you. Right now, you might have coins sitting in your home. Old piggy banks, glass jars, drawers filled with loose change, maybe even coins inherited from family members. Each one is a potential opportunity. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Opportunity doesn't announce itself, that it hides in plain sight. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but how do I know if my 1964 D penny is valuable? Great question. Start with these basics. Look at the condition. Is it clean, sharp, and detailed? Check for unusual features. Anything that looks off or different. Pay attention to color. Some rare variations stand out visually. And most importantly, don't rely on guesswork. Because here's the thing, what looks ordinary to you could be extraordinary to an expert. And this is where many people make a costly mistake. They either ignore the coin, or they sell it too quickly. Imagine selling a coin for $1.50. That could have been worth thousands, or more. It happens more often than you think. Why? Because of impatience and lack of information. So take your time. Do your research. And if something looks promising, get it authenticated. Professional grading services exist for a reason. They can confirm whether your coin is truly valuable or just another penny. And that confirmation can change your financial future. Now let's talk about urgency. Because this window won't stay open forever. As more people become aware of valuable coins like the 1964 D penny, the competition increases. More collectors enter the market. More coins get discovered. And the rarest examples, they get locked away in private collections, which means fewer opportunities for everyone else. So here's the moment of truth. What are you going to do after this video ends? Will you scroll to the next video? Or will you take action? Will you check your coins? Or assume you don't have anything valuable? Because remember, the difference between 1 cent and $966,000 isn't luck. It's awareness. And maybe, just maybe, the next incredible discovery is sitting in your home right now, waiting for you to notice it, waiting for you to recognize this value, waiting for you to take that first step. So go ahead, check your pockets, open that drawer, grab that jar of coins, and start looking, because hidden among those ordinary pennies could be the one that changes everything. What if I told you that a simple penny, yes, a coin you might have tossed into a jar, left in your car, or ignored at a grocery checkout, could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, or even more? Not a rare gold coin, not a historic artifact. A 1971 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. Sounds impossible, right? But here's the truth. Collectors across the United States are actively searching for specific versions of this coin, and some have sold for astonishing amounts, figures reaching as high as $866,000 under the right conditions. Now pause for a second. Think about where your spare change is right now. A drawer? Ayar? Maybe an old box in the attic? Because by the end of this video, you might look at those pennies very differently. And more importantly, you might realize you've been sitting on hidden wealth this entire time. Let's start with the story. In 1971, millions of Lincoln pennies were minted in Philadelphia. These coins did not carry a mint mark, which at the time was completely normal. Nothing about them seemed special. They were ordinary, common, forgettable. But here's where things get interesting. Within those millions of coins, a tiny fraction were struck with subtle but critical differences, errors, variations, and high-grade conditions that transformed them from everyday currency into collector gold. And most people, they never noticed. They spent them, lost them, ignored them. And that's exactly why some of these coins are now worth life-changing money. Now imagine this: two people each receive the same penny in 1971. One spends it on a soda. The other unknowingly keeps it in a drawer for decades. Fast forward to today. That same coin, if it meets the right criteria, could be worth more than a luxury house. The difference? Awareness. And today you're gaining that awareness. Let's break down what makes a 1971 no-mint mark penny so valuable. First, condition is everything. We're talking about coins graded in near-perfect or perfect condition, what collectors call mint state, especially grades like MS65, MS66, or even higher. These coins look almost untouched by time, sharp details, brilliant shine. No scratches or wear. And here's the kicker: most pennies from 1971 are nowhere near this condition anymore. They've been circulated for decades. So when a pristine example surfaces, collectors compete aggressively to own it. And that competition? It drives prices sky high. But condition alone isn't the whole story. Here's where things get even more exciting. Some 1971 pennies feature rare minting errors, and these errors are where the real money is. We're talking about double die errors, where the lettering or date appears slightly duplicated. Off-center strikes, die cracks. Or subtle variations that only trained eyes can detect. Now let me ask you something. If you had a coin that looked just slightly off, would you even notice? Or would you spend it without a second thought? That's exactly what most people do. And that's why these rare error coins are so valuable today. Because they survived. Now here's where the story takes a turn. A few years ago, a high-grade 1971 no-mint mark penny, combined with exceptional condition and unique characteristics, was evaluated and valued at around $866,000. Let that sink in. $866,000 for a 1-cent coin. Now I know what you might be thinking. Is this real? Or just hype? Fair question. Because in the world of coin collecting, not every old penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth exactly 1 cent. But the key is this: you're not looking for most coins. You're looking for the right coin, and the right coin can change everything. Let's shift gears for a moment. Picture this scenario: you're cleaning out an old drawer. You find a handful of pennies. You almost throw them back, but something stops you. You remember this video. You take a closer look, and suddenly, you notice something unusual: the date, the shine. A tiny doubling in the letters. Your heart starts racing, because now, it's not just a penny anymore, it's a possibility. This is where excitement meets urgency. Because here's the reality. Collectors are constantly searching, markets are always changing, and the window of opportunity doesn't stay open forever. Coins get discovered, prices fluctuate, demand shifts, which means the sooner you check your coins, the better your chances. Waiting could mean missing out, and let's be honest. No one wants to realize they had a fortune in their hands and let it slip away. Now, let's talk about what you should actually do. First, gather your pennies. Yes, all of them. Old jars, drawers, piggy banks, everything. Next, start looking specifically for 1971 pennies without a mint mark. Remember, no mint mark means it was minted in Philadelphia. Then, examine the coin carefully. Look for unusual doubling in the text, sharp, clean details, minimal where a bright, original luster. And here's a quick tip. If your coin looks too perfect to be ordinary, it might be worth investigating further. But don't stop there. Because here's another twist. Even if your coin isn't worth hundreds of thousands, it could still be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. And that's still a massive return on something you already owe. So the risk? Almost zero, but the potential reward? Life-changing. Let's pause for a quick reality check. How many times have you ignored loose change? Be honest, we all have. But what if just one of those coins was worth more than your annual income? That's not just a missed opportunity. That's a missed transformation. Now, as we move toward the final part of this story, there's something important you need to understand. The value of these coins isn't just about money, it's about knowledge. Because once you know what to look for, you see the world differently. You stop overlooking small things. You start recognizing hidden value, and that mindset, it doesn't just apply to coins. It applies to opportunities everywhere. So here's the big question. What are you going to do next? Will you check your coins? Or will you assume you don't have anything valuable? Because the truth is, most people choose the second option. They assume, they ignore, they miss out. But the ones who take action, they're the ones who discover the unexpected. And before you go, here's one final thought. Somewhere out there right now, a 1971 no-mint mark penny is sitting in someone's drawer, completely unnoticed, completely undervalued, waiting to be discovered. The only question is it yours? Because if it is, and you don't check, you might never know what you had. So take a moment. Today, go find your pennies. Look closely. And remember, sometimes the smallest things hold the greatest value. What if the next time you reach into your pocket or open that dusty jar of old coins, you unknowingly hold a small copper disc worth not just a few cents, but hundreds of thousands of dollars? It sounds unbelievable. Almost like a myth collectors tell each other late at night. But today, we're diving into a coin that has sparked curiosity, debate, and serious money. The 1975 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. A coin some claim has reached values as high as $6.99,000 now. Here's the question you need to ask yourself right now. What if you already have one and don't even know it? Let's find out. Act 1. The discovery. Picture this. It's a normal day. You're cleaning out a drawer, maybe sorting through old belongings, and you come across a handful of pennies. Most people would ignore them. After all, they're just pennies, right? But what if one of those coins isn't ordinary? The 1975 Lincoln penny with no mint mark was struck during a time when billions of pennies were produced across the United States. Philadelphia mint coins traditionally carried no mint mark, which means millions of 1975 pennies look exactly the same at first glance. So why are collectors whispering about this coin? Why are some willing to pay life-changing money for it? Because hidden within this sea of ordinary coins are rare variations. And those variations are what separate a 1-cent coin from a potential 6-figure treasure. Let's pause for a second seriously. How many times have you ignored pennies in your life? Dropped them in jars, left them in cars, or even thrown them away? Now imagine if just one of those was worth more than your house. Sounds crazy. Stay with me. Act 2. The secret behind the value. The truth is, not every 1975 penny is valuable. In fact, most are only worth face value. But the rare ones, the ones collectors dream about, come down to a combination of condition, errors, and microscopic details most people never notice. Let's start with condition. Coins are graded on a scale, and the highest grades, those near perfect, are incredibly rare. A 1975 penny that has never been circulated, never scratched, and still shines like it just left the mint, can already command significant value. But here's where things get interesting. Errors. Minting errors are the holy grail of coin collecting. These are mistakes made during production, tiny, sometimes invisible flaws that turn a common coin into something extraordinary. We're talking about double strikes, off-center designs, and even die errors that create unusual textures or shapes on the coin surface. And yes, there have been cases where such rare 1975 pennies, especially those in pristine condition combined with unusual minting anomalies, have reached astonishing valuations, with some reports placing top examples near the $699,000 mark in elite collector markets. Let that sink in. A coin you could easily overlook could be worth more than a luxury home. But here's the catch, and this is where many people make a critical mistake. They assume all old coins are valuable. They're not. In fact, 99.9% of 1975 pennies are just pennies. So how do you know if yours is the one that matters? This is where attention to detail becomes your greatest asset. Start by checking the surface. Is it unusually clean? Does it have a mirror-like shine? Look at the lettering. Is there doubling? Any distortion? Examine the edges. Are they perfectly aligned or slightly off? And here's a quick reality check. If you're squinting and thinking, maybe I see something, chances are you need a professional opinion. Because the difference between a 1-cent coin and a $699,000 coin often comes down to details you simply can't confirm with the naked eye. Now you might be wondering, if these coins are so valuable, why haven't more people found them? That's where the story takes an interesting turn. Act 3. The opportunity and the urgency. Rare coins don't announce themselves. They don't glow. They don't come with a label saying, "Congratulations, you're rich." They sit quietly, hidden in collections, jars, and forgotten boxes. And every day people unknowingly spend them. Yes, spend them. Imagine paying for coffee with a coin that could have changed your life. It happens more often than you think. Because most people aren't looking. But now you are. And that changes everything. Here's the truth that serious collectors understand. Opportunities like this don't last forever. As more people become aware of valuable coins, as more collections are searched and verified, the number of undiscovered treasures shrinks. Which means one thing: the earlier you check your coins, the better your chances. So what should you do right now? Start simple. Go through your coins. Look for 1975 pennies. Set them aside. Don't rush. Treat this like a treasure hunt, because that's exactly what it is. Next, evaluate condition. The cleaner and sharper the coin, the better. Then, if something seems unusual, even slightly, consider having it professionally graded. Yes, that step matters, because in the world of rare coins, authentication is everything. Without it, even a genuine rarity can go unnoticed or, worse, undervalued. And let's be honest, if there's even a small chance your coin could be worth thousands or hundreds of thousands, isn't it worth taking seriously? Now here's a thought that might surprise you. The real value of this journey isn't just the money, it's the awareness. The shift from seeing coins as worthless to recognizing them as potential assets. Because once you develop that eye, once you start paying attention, you'll never look at spare change the same way again. And who knows, maybe the next time you hear that familiar clink of coins in your pocket, you'll pause. You'll take a closer look. And you might just discover something extraordinary. So before you move on from this video, ask yourself one final question. What if the coin that changes your life is already in your possession? Check your pennies. Because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary might be just one coin away. But before you dismiss this as another internet myth, let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually looked closely at your pennies? Because hidden among millions of ordinary coins, there are a few extraordinary ones. And today, we're uncovering one of the most overlooked treasures in modern American coinage, the 1991 Lincoln 1-cent penny with no mint mark. And if you stay with me until the end, I'll show you exactly what to look for and why some collectors are willing to pay life-changing money for this tiny piece of copper history. Let's start with something simple. In 1991, billions of Lincoln pennies were produced in the United States. These coins were everyday currency, nothing special, nothing rare, or so it seemed. Most people assume that because a coin is modern, it can't possibly be valuable. That assumption is costing people thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. Here's where things get interesting. The 1991 penny without a mint mark was struck in Philadelphia. That alone isn't unusual. In fact, many Philadelphia coins don't carry a mint mark, but what separates an ordinary coin from an extraordinary one is not just where it was made, it's how it was made, and more importantly, what went wrong during the process. Now imagine this. You're going through an old drawer, maybe cleaning out a jar of loose change. You pick up a penny. It looks normal at first, but something feels off. The surface is sharper. The details are unusually crisp. The lettering looks stronger, almost too perfect. And then it hits you. This might not be just another penny. This could be one of the rare high-grade 1991 no-mint mark coins that, under the right conditions, have reached values close to $899,000 in elite collector markets. Yes, nearly $1 million. For a coin most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up. But let's pause for a second. Why would anyone pay that kind of money for a penny? It comes down to three powerful forces: rarity, condition, and demand. First, rarity. While millions were minted, only a microscopic fraction survive in near-perfect condition. We're talking about coins that have never truly circulated. Coins that somehow escaped wear, scratches, and damage for decades. Second, condition. In the coin world, condition is everything. A tiny scratch, a slight discoloration, even a minor dent can reduce value dramatically. But if a coin is graded at the highest levels, what collectors call mint state, its value skyrockets. And third, demand. There are collectors out there, serious ones, who are constantly hunting for the best of the best. They don't want average. They want perfection. And they're willing to pay for it. Now here's where things take a turn. Not every 1991 no-mint mark penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth just a few cents. So how do you tell the difference between a worthless coin and one that could change your life? This is where knowledge becomes your greatest asset. Start by looking at the coin's surface. Is it shiny? Is it free of scratches? Does it still have that original mint luster? Next, examine the details. Look closely at Lincoln's face. The sharper the features, the better. Pay attention to the lettering, Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date, 1991. These should appear crisp and well-defined. And here's something most people overlook. The edges. A high-value coin often has clean, well-preserved edges with no signs of heavy circulation. If your coin checks these boxes, don't celebrate just yet, because there's one more factor that could make it even more valuable. Errors? Yes, mistakes. In the world of coin collecting, mistakes can be worth a fortune. We're talking about misprints, double strikes, off-center designs, or subtle variations that occur during production. These errors are rare, unpredictable, and incredibly desirable. Imagine owning a coin that was never supposed to exist in its current form. That's not just a collectible. That's a story, and collectors pay for stories. Now let me ask you something. What would you do if you found out that a coin sitting in your home right now could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? Would you ignore it? Would you toss it back into the jar? Or would you take a closer look? Because here's the truth. Opportunities like this don't come with flashing signs. They hide in plain sight. Let's talk about real-world impact. There have been cases where ordinary individuals, people just like you, discovered valuable coins by accident. No special training, no expensive equipment, just curiosity and a willingness to look closer. One person found a rare penny while sorting through inherited coins. Another spotted a high-grade coin in everyday change. And then there are those who realized too late, after spending or losing coins that could have been worth a fortune. Don't let that be your story. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds exciting, but what if I don't have one? Fair question. But here's a better one. What if you do, and you just haven't noticed it yet? Think about how many pennies you've handled in your lifetime. Hundreds? Thousands? And how many did you actually inspect? Exactly. This is where urgency comes in. Because every day, coins are being lost, damaged, or overlooked. Every day, potential treasures disappear. And every day, the number of high-grade 1991 no-mint mark pennies becomes smaller and more valuable. Time is not on your side. But knowledge is. So here's what you should do next. Go find your pennies. Check your drawers. Your wallets, old jars, forgotten boxes. Take them out, one by one. Look at them differently this time. Not as loose change, but as potential assets. Because that's what they are. And if you think you've found something special, don't rush. Get it evaluated by a professional grading service. Authentication is critical. It's what transforms a maybe into a confirmed high-value coin. Without it, your coin is just a guess. With it, it becomes an investment. Now here's the part most people never hear. Even if you don't find the $899,000 coin, you're still ahead. Because you've developed an eye for value. You've trained yourself to see opportunity where others see nothing. And that mindset, it doesn't just apply to coins. It applies to life. Before we wrap this up, let me leave you with one final thought. Somewhere out there, maybe in a dusty jar, maybe in a forgotten drawer, maybe even in your pocket right now, there's a 1991 no-mint mark penny waiting to be discovered, waiting to be recognized, waiting to change someone's life. The only question is, will that someone be you, or will you let it slip away, like so many others have? The choice is yours.